Welcome to America's Heroes Group.
And welcome back to America's Heroes Group. And we have our last segment of today, which is a roundtable discussion with our partner, the Veterans Legislative Voice. March is National Women's History Month and Disability Awareness Month. Today is Saturday, March 12th, 2022. You just heard our host over the commercial break, Cliff Kelley. I'm the co-host, Sean Claiborne. Our executive producer is Glenda Smith, and our digital media producer is Ivan Ortega of Scouts Honor Productions. And we have a familiar voice again on our show, Stephanie Kalota. She's a U.S. Army Reserve Sergeant First Class. She's a veteran and the founder and creator of the Veterans Legislative Voice. And she's going to talk about House Representative Bill 3967, which is called the Honoring Our PACT Act of 2021. What is this act all about, Stephanie?
Hi, I'm glad to be here. So this bill has a lot of great information and a lot of different things that would change for veterans, specifically towards toxic exposures. Most definitely, probably the biggest thing right now that most veterans are looking forward to if it does pass is that it does establish presumptives towards burn pits and specific medical conditions. And for women veterans, it's very important because it counts for reproductive cancers as well. So a lot of female veterans have an increased rate of breast cancer, and a lot of people link it towards burn pits. So that's a big thing for the women veterans today. And then also it creates a registry and a good amount of studies for veterans. The registry would actually be for Fort McClellan out of Anniston, Alabama. It's towards what everybody's familiar with Camp Lejeune, because there was a lot of water contamination that happened there. At Fort McClellan, the water contamination didn't exactly originate from the military. It was actually from the civilian side, but a good amount of the base people that had served on it during a certain time period were affected because of the toxicity in the water.
Which base was this?
Fort McClellan.
Wow.
Alabama. I've had the honor of being there, thankfully, after they cleaned everything up. But yeah, it's a beautiful area, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's weird that you mentioned that because the Anniston Army Depot is down there at the Anniston, Alabama. And that's where they got all those toxic stuff. It's ironic that this is where they're launching this study, because that's where, pretty much anything nasty you want to find is in the Anniston Army Depot, weapons depot.
Pretty much. I've had the honor of working at a few Army depots, or at least visiting, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Wow. I had a friend that used to go and have to clean up, like do the not to clean up, but he would have to go and do inspections there. When he was he was in the Navy actually though, but he was somehow got assigned to that detail, and everybody when he was coming in from the Navy, everybody took off that day because they didn't want to go in to do it. So it was so you got this. We'll take off and come back next month. But so what are some of the things we can look forward to, and also what's the likelihood of success to get this type of thing passed through legislation?
Well, since it had already passed the House and a good amount of the Democrats, since they do rule the majority, well, it's 50-50 split with the vice president's 51 to break the tie, it's very likely that it would pass if they do bring it towards for a vote. That's one of the struggling things we do have with the Congress is often the votes that we think that would more likely pass do not come for a vote. Or we would like to pass, doesn't come for a vote, and sometimes that is also in the charge of the majority leaders. Last year, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell had restricted the amount of bills that he would like to get introduced into the House, in the Senate. So it's been a bit of a struggle. We're really looking forward on getting this one sent up. Another thing that I am looking forward to on this is that it actually creates an independent study on the individuals, the service members, in their personal health records. So you can have that impact updated into their records as they are serving, especially when they already know that some people have been working or living in an area that might be toxic for living there. So it'll be something that will really help veterans in the future when they do become veterans.
Do you think that the pandemic had a lot to do with this to make people more aware of the social toxicity of different things? So the stuff we touch, the stuff that we spray or paint our vehicles with, all these breakthrough chemicals. Teflon was invented in the military. Then we found out that Teflon is not as safe as we thought it was. So all these different things that that we come up with in the military. What changed all of a sudden since World War I, World War II, Vietnam, and then the Gulf Wars to make us more aware of this type of issue? Is it the pandemic?
I say it's more social media, and social media has been affected by the pandemic because people had to be restricted to their own homes. So people are more likely to be using and accessing social media. A lot of studies and a lot of information comes out there to help with people understand what's going on. I mean, just the power of memes alone is crazy on how it brings awareness for people. Because I've seen a couple of political memes out there actually for the benefit of passing bills, and I've created some myself, and they really do help start the conversations online.
And speaking of social media, you can also listen to us and see us on Facebook Live right now. We're going live on Facebook. You can also search America's Heroes Group. You can search America's HG and watch us on our website, americashg.org. Or you can go to platforms like Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and download us or see us on Zandra TV. That is an app on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV. The Zandra TV network allows you to see other shows and also America's Heroes Group. So check us out, and also make sure you comment. There's discussion. The discussion doesn't end when the show goes off the air. Leave your discussions on social media. Let us know how you feel. Let us know how you think, and engage in the community. So having said that, so one of the things I'm curious about is, so all the things that we have out there, all the things you talked about on our show in the previous segments, all these different bills that have come out, what has been in the last couple of years from memory the success rate of these things actually getting legs or even becoming law, or at least is getting to the next stage?
Well, it's fancy you ask that, because I've actually started studying the political history of the passage of veterans and military bills, and it's actually right around 1% of all bills that are introduced are actually passed or enacted in law. There is a lot of bills that cover similar things and overlap. It's because once they introduce a bill and then they realize that they need to edit it or things like that, a lot of times they just introduce a new bill with new information instead of adding an amendment, because it does take an additional vote for adding the amendment on there. So it does add a couple of steps in there. So it kind of flubs with the numbers a bit when you have that. But yeah, 1% is about the number.
That sounds depressing, Stephanie. I thought you were going to tell me like at least 10%, 15%. I got 1%.
No, sadly, yes. In the House, thousands of bills are introduced. They also include different things like resolutions, which is mostly a universal public statement about something that's happening. And so that also can be included on those numbers as well.
Okay. So what is your prognosis for this one? You kind of mentioned that it's getting a little bit of steam. And it seems like this is in line with a lot of other stuff that's going on in the world. The reason why I'm asking you this question a little bit deeper, because of the fact that more people seem to be more aware of environmental issues, especially when we're talking about the green movement. We're talking about moving to electric cars. We're talking about even looking at the toxicity of lithium-ion batteries and the waste fields and stuff where you take your garbage in the landfills. All this stuff is becoming more and more front and center in the media and on social media and on people's minds. I really am pretty optimistic for this bill. I mean, I try to be optimistic for most bills, mostly because if not, I go a little crazy, because also that 1% number I had quoted. But I do have a lot of enthusiasm with this bill. The bill that passed in the House, it had all of the Democrats voting yay and 34 Republicans. I have a inkling that more than one Republicans are going to be voting yay for this if it does come to a vote. Personally, I'm from Florida, so Senator Marco Rubio has been on top of these type of
bills and had been co-sponsoring and introducing these bills with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. So I'm looking forward. I'm hoping that he does vote yay. So anybody that does want these type of bills passed, please contact your representatives, your senators. You give them a call. I recommend that way because it's the quickest and easiest way to get the information out there and to them. They register every single call, email, and snail mail. If I knew of the facts, that would probably be the other way. And they register it all there. The reason why I recommend phones is because when people send an email or mail, it goes through a lot of processing. And so when, for example, last year I sent an email to the Senator Rubio's office, and I didn't get a response until like 3 or 4 months later. I don't blame them because they're probably receiving a whole lot of emails because it is the state of Florida, but it does happen. And so calling them and leaving a message, getting that registered and getting the information out there is the best way to go.
I'll even say if I was impressed with the fact they even responded. I mean, 3 months later even, because I'd imagine they would get like a lot of different calls, but just getting any kind of response, I mean, this tells you that, that your democratic voice does make a difference. I mean, we're a republic, but we are also a democratic republic. So the thing of it is that we got to make sure that we use the tools and methods that we have available to us. But I also want to say the thing is really important for us as a nation, particularly, is to be better. We need to up our reading comprehension skills, really. I mean, we really need to understand and try to be able to take in information and dissect it and think critically about the information that's coming through us at social media, on television, on the news, learning how to just not take somebody's word for what they say on because they're on a podcast or on a radio show, making sure that we understand, what real facts are, and then how to vet facts.
Mm-hmm. For me, if it doesn't have a reference of what they're saying, I honestly try to take it as a grain of salt. And another point about social media I forgot to mention is the power of the hashtags. When Vanessa Guillen went missing, the power of and also everybody finding about the sexual harassment that she had received while she was still serving, a lot of people started using the hashtag I am Vanessa Guillen and then sharing their own personal stories. Many of the representatives and senators that were concerned about this subject read these stories. They even mentioned that within the congressional hearings. I was very frustrated when I heard that one of the military officers that was at the hearing testifying, he didn't go into reading those hashtags. I do know a couple of military leaders that stand out and actually read a lot of the tweets and messages that they receive, and they will reply. My favorite is Sergeant Major of the Army Grinston, because he replies to a lot of things and he reads all of the messages he gets. It's amazing on how much the power of the social media can really help impact these people.
Are they now in the political world and even in the military? Is it more so that these guys are reading things directly, or do they have do they have a group or understudies or people that actually do that for them and kind of respond?
It really depends on the person, on how tech savvy they are on the social media. I'm pretty sure try not to really subject it, but I hope that they all read it. I've worked on command staffs before, and the PAO people do take care of that, and they usually do a nice little memo to give them updated information of what they are aware of on social media. And some officials are really good about doing it themselves, and it's amazing of how in touch they can get with the normal people of today.
So what do you think this bill really truly means to veterans? Like, what do you think the impact will be if it does make it and become law? What do you think the main impact is going to be to everybody, civilians and military members?
Well, first off, I think of the VA disability claims, because that's a big one. A lot of veterans, they can only get a lot of the veterans that have disability, they have up to under 50%. And that means they can only receive treatment on conditions that are service connected. For me, the presumptives of that, establishing those presumptives, that helps them go over the mark to 50%. And if they have either the 50% or the service connection for those burn pit conditions or cause conditions, they have more treatment. They can take care of the cancers or the really disabling conditions that they have, and it can save lives because many veterans weren't able to get the treatment right away because they didn't qualify for the VA care, and then they just took their time or they couldn't afford anything else. So many veterans had passed because they didn't have that access to health care. I do want to put a disclaimer out there that if they do file for the claims when the presumptives are established, the VA disability claims are going to become backlogged. They became backlogged when VA added, chronic sinusitis, rhinitis, and asthma to the burn pit presumptives. They did that. The backlog went back. I think it added about 3 or 4 months to a typical average claim. So just look out for that, everybody. If that does become established, there will be a backlog of claims. They have been doing really good on working on these claims because, of course, we backlogged because of COVID. I was one of the veterans that was part of the backlog in 2012, and I waited 14 months for my first exam.
Wow, man.
So, yeah, they've been doing a lot
cancer.
better.
Man.
Yes, I'm glad it wasn't cancer either. And then I got my first checks, I think, 23 months later. And I had a pretty average initial claim. I had a lot of things in there, so it wasn't, and I had a lot of good documentation. So it would have been a really easy case for them at least. But sometimes people don't have the easiest cases, and they have to have patience, and it sucks, and it's frustrating.
So when is the bill coming down the pike that says, okay, now for the first time in our nation's history, we're going to not have our veterans have to go through this weird, documentation process. You just get health care because you were a veteran. You were put on the uniform, you served 6 months or whatever. Now you have health care. Whatever it is that's wrong with you, just come to the VA or come to a clinic, and we're going to treat it. Whether you do it through the VA or do it through a private doctor, you will get health care. Just like it is when you're in the military, when you're actually serving. For the most part, you can just go to, once you get, of course, you got to get permission. But once you go to a hospital, a military hospital, they're going to treat you. You don't have to have documentation or proof. If you get sick as a civilian, you can just go see a doctor. If you have insurance, if you're paying for insurance, that's with your employer. They're not going to make you prove that you got sick under certain conditions. Therefore, you don't get this or you don't get that. You just go to the doctor. You have a deductible, and that's it.
Right. And some people do qualify for those deductible things, and they do pay for it. I do know a handful of veterans that do have to pay the certain care while they're at the VA because they will charge if they're not service-connected and they are not eligible in a certain class. It is frustrating. The biggest thing that I know for making health care for all, for veterans, that would be really difficult because of the amount of money. The amount of money that they are estimating for this is over, I think, $30 billion for the next 10 years.
That's not, and a lot of think about that though. You spend $700 billion per year on hardware.
Yeah.
Just on hardware. We have $700 billion per year in climbing. We don't even bat an eye at that.
No, and then this happens,
you're talking about $3 billion $3 billion a year over 10 years, $30 billion. That's nothing.
Yeah. Here, let me excuse me. I forgot a zero. It's $300 billion over 10 years.
Even if that's $30 billion a year. I mean, the entire VA system for all benefits is $200 billion a year. That's for all benefits. That's education benefits, housing benefits, medical benefits. Any benefit the VA offers is $200 billion per year. The hardware budget, the defense budget, is $700 billion every year plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we're approaching pretty quickly $1 trillion military budget for half the weapons we don't even use.
Yeah, and the argue about this is because a lot of people don't see the toxic exposures as the cost of war. And that has been changing a lot of people's perspectives nowadays as they're becoming more aware, and there's more studies done for these burn pits or even the Gulf War veterans. Gulf War veterans are also included on this bill. There are actually 2 conditions being added towards the Agent Orange presumptives. One of them is hypertension, and then the other one is a very complicated pronouncing disease. But the hypertension is a big one because a lot of Congress people fight against that one because that one will be the most expensive of all the presumptives for Agent Orange because a lot of the veterans have hypertension.
So they're fighting over trying to figure out how to get a faster missile or a shinier toilet that could be deployed in the field, but they can't get. You're fighting against trying to get somebody some medical attention.
Yep, exactly. It's very frustrating, and thankfully, there's been a lot of advocates out there to actually fight for this. And it's been an amazing way of basically the amazing journey that we've been taking in the past couple of years.
Wow. So tell us, how do we get a hold of Veterans Legislative Voice? Give us your social media information. How do we connect with you?
Yeah, Veteran Legislative Voice is on Facebook as a page, as a group, Instagram, Twitter. My website is VETS, VETS, legislativevoice.org.
And then, so final words. Tell us what do you want us to know about this, and anything else you want us to kind of digest before you leave out.
I just want to let everybody know, just keep fighting and keep pushing for this bill and any other bills that you believe is important. Anybody that has any questions about how to advocate or whether there's even a bill introduced on the situation that you're covering or you're being impacted by, contact me through social media and I can help you out. I actually stalk a lot of veterans groups to find people in their situations, and I refer them to congressional bills that have been introduced that could help them so they can talk to their Congress people and to get those co-sponsored and pushed for voting.
I think that's really important information that they give us. I think it's really important. So the audience, make sure you look up on the internet or go into social media and research House Representative Bill 3967, honoring our PACT Act of 2021. Reach out to Stephanie Kalota. Make sure that you connect with her so she has the information and also can give you the information that you need in order to be a responsible citizen, a responsible veteran, and also help change the trajectory of how we are being treated as veterans. I mean, make sure we prioritize veterans' health before and after war. Thank you, Stephanie, for your time. I really appreciate you coming on the show. You always have great information for us.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
And this is America's Heroes Group.